And I didn't really think about it until like a couple days ago, Dom, actually. I was like, man, I think Dom might have quite a bit to say about this movie too. He
I
knows
do. I do.
classical music better than I do and stuff. I know jazz is really one of your get you out of bed in the morning. That's one of your passions in life. But I'm excited to talk this movie, Tar, because I love this movie, and it's so hard for me to describe to people why I love this
Isn't it?
movie.
It's so difficult. I actually tried telling. I told my friends. One of my friends, actually the same guy. That's Iron Carter. Funny enough, I was like, I came out of the theater, like literally out of the theater. I texted him. He goes, "Man, you got to watch this movie, Tar." And he's like, "I have heard nothing about it. What's it about?" It's like, "Oh yeah, how do I describe it to him?" It's
No
like,
kidding, right?
yeah. And
Yeah,
I wound up kind of sneakily. I said it's the harrowing story of a gay conductor trying to keep her concert together, which is technically correct.
that's not wrong. You're not wrong. There's no false advertising there. Um, I first things first, just contextualize this because I think there's a large part of the population that has not heard of this movie. Um, Cate Blanchett's in it. It's directed by Todd Field. Todd Field, this is his first movie that he's worked on in 16 years. And I mean first movie, period. The guy hasn't produced anything, written anything. He's quit acting since like the early 2000s. This is his first movie in 16 years. His last movie was Little Children in 2006, and he was also responsible for In the Bedroom back in 2001 with Sissy Spacek. Um, Tar, though, is probably up there with the Banshees of Inisherin. Um, there was another movie, I can't think of the name of it, that's up there. Tar is up there, though, I would say at least the top 10 most acclaimed movies of the year
Yeah.
in terms of critical reception. It has gotten rave reviews. I truthfully think it's the front runner for Best Picture at this moment in time.
And
I
actress.
think it's the and actress. I think if Cate Blanchett doesn't win it, I don't know who is at this point. But I think this movie has a chance to clean house at the Oscars. I truly do, for whatever that's worth. Having said that, though, the critical reception has been sterling. The audience reception, understandably,
Yeah.
has been very mixed and
Yeah.
polarized.
I expected that. Like 10 minutes into this, not to cut your train, but 10 minutes into this movie, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be polars." Complete polars, cuz it literally opens with like a literal like 5 minute, which is a lot of time in movie time. 5 minute New Yorker interview. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, no wonder the
Forget
critics
that.
love
It
this.
opens with before even that.
Oh, that's
Let me
true.
tell
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
low key, I love that scene. But
Oh, I
like
do
that whole
too.
scene, it's not even a scene; it's a sequence.
Yeah.
At that point, not only that, I love like this movie's gonna piss people off immediately because it opens with credits, which are called acknowledgments, mind you, and they're shown backwards leading up to the producers and then Todd Field. And they don't show the cast either.
I
They
thought
don't show
about
the
that
cast
too.
until the very end.
Very smart.
And I thought that was smart, and there's a reason for it.
Yeah, 100%. But I do. I'm gonna defeat that argument. I don't know. It's like they waste our time for the first actual 5 minutes with these opening credits. I'm like, bro, like every movie since like or like before the '60s did that. So get used to it.
True.
Literally, I think Star Wars was the first one, or at least one of the first to do that, and he got into a big, uh, uh, uh George Lucas got into a big fight with the unions over putting the credits at the end.
You watch any pre-60 movies? Like I love Clark Gable movies. There's a period of time I was watching a Clark Gable movie a week. The first 5 minutes are devoted to credits.
Yeah, 100%.
The first 5 minutes are devoted
This is
to
not
credits.
new. But anyway, continue.
With my friend though, me and my friend, we're gonna go back and forth on this. He saw this movie like a week and a half before I did, and he was like, "I hated it. I don't know how anybody like can like it. It's joyless, whatever." So then I saw it, and I texted him. The first thing I texted him was, I said, "Loved it. Could totally see why you or anybody else would hate it." And he was, I think he was kind of disappointed because he's like, "I wanted to argue with you about it." And I said, "No, it's not one of those movies that like if somebody tells me they saw it and hated it, I'm be like, I can see it. I understand."
Well, why did they say that they hated it? What were like some of the reasons?
He said, well, I mean, in a lot of ways too. I mean, it's not his name ain't the title of the show at the end of the day. But I mean, what he said though, no, what he basically said though is he said that it doesn't really develop character relationships. We never really get a clear picture on what exactly Lydia Tarr did. And it's sort of the movie sort of just plods in that regard, in that it spends a lot of time on nothing, and it's very subtle in that way. And I totally
I
get
get it, but
why anybody would hate it.
I would leverage that in saying that's the trick that the directors, not the trick, but like that is a concerted strategy. So at the very least, if you disagree with that strategy, that's fine. But it's not due to any kind of amateurish take on it. But in any case, I'm not here to argue with your friend, who is very valid take. But yeah, continue. Sorry.
No, the only thing I'll add to, just in sort of opening remarks, though, is again, I can totally see why anybody would think this is a chore to get through. And I'm not going to lie, it was a patience tester for me at times too, especially in the second act. But there is so much here that I think is finely crafted. It's almost like it's an orchestra in its own right. The shots, the blocking, the cinematography, the very austere look of this movie. And the other thing, and I love movies that do this, even if I don't quite understand them to the fullest degree. I love movies, and the Nicolas Cage movie Pig is kind of similar in this regard, where it just takes you into a very specific world, drops you in it, no real introduction, swim. And that's kind of what this movie does. Because in the first, like you said, in the first at real 5 minutes of the movie during that New Yorker festival, they're going through her resume. The interviewer's going through Lydia Tarr, played by Cate Blanchett, this famous conductor's resume. And they're referencing all sorts of conductor names that most of the audience probably hasn't heard of. A lot of symphonies, a lot of like intricate details about the art of conducting. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I knew a single person they name dropped in this, but I was leaning forward in the beginning. I'm like, you know what, this is just really fascinating here. And like, I kind of like being in this world where like everybody has everything and everybody's miserable.
Yeah, I think
I enjoyed that.
Yeah,
you take it from here.
The misery is the best part, the most entertaining part, I should say, because it's like amidst all this wealth, pomp, circumstance, privilege, amazing status, like tens of thousands of artists would commit murder to be in one of the chairs in that orchestra. But they're all, and even though they're on that orchestra, some of them first chairs, some of them concert master like the wife, and it's like, dude, they're all still miserable. And how like, isn't that just art for you? Isn't that just art and artistry for you? But yeah, dude, I think amongst the three of us, I think it's safe to say I am the closest to this world, you, me, and Joe. But
yeah,
and not that I'm
definitely
remotely close at all, just relatively speaking, amongst the three of us.
Knowledgeable.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, like North Central College in Naperville, did you notice that Wentz Concert Hall looks just like, or very, very similar to the concert hall in the movie?
I noticed that. Yeah, I did take note of that. I'm like, man, this looks like Wentz right here.
There's a reason for that. There is a shared architecture, and there's a shared general, strategies on how to approach, a symphony hall. But all that aside, it's scary accurate. There's even a scene towards the first third of the movie, first quarter of the movie, where they're doing a master class, and I've been in some music-based master classes before, and they are that intense, particularly when the person giving the master class is very up there and a little full of themselves. There's a lot of ego that drives this movie, obviously from Blanchett's character Tar, but in every character, no doubt. Oh my God, the stuffy old people eating, expensive New York, but still tiny meals is ridiculous here. But you're right, Steve. It is absolutely fascinating, and even though. I knew probably at most like 20% of the names dropped very casually in this film.
It goes deep, man.
It goes real deep. I'm like, even I know that's a deep, deep, deep cut. And yeah, dude. But even in that sense, it didn't lose. I'm glad it didn't lose either of us. And I can also see how your friend can be very much turned off by. Let's be honest. This is a very coastal elitist rich ass bougie world where it's like, bro, Especially with the midterms just happening as we're watching this, just about to happen while we're watching. No, I literally watched it yesterday during the midterms, in the middle of the midterms, and it's like, yeah, I can still see how you can not be engaged with this, and yet
This is gonna win This is gonna win Best Picture,
oh,
and
this is the
and
La
it's
La
gonna be
Land,
one.
kind of thing.
This is gonna win Best Picture, and this is gonna be like one of the by general audiences. And I'm not when I say general audiences, I'm not talking like even the people that use like Letterboxd. I'm talking like general moviegoers. It's gonna be one of the most maligned fucking Best Picture winners in years. Book it.
This is the East Coast La La Land. This is. Am I wrong?
Yes.
Am I wrong? That West Coast rap.
Yes.
West Coast rap is real casual. They're all they like to go with the flow. But the East Coast mother effers, they go hard. East Coast goes hard. And bro, the color palette is cold as ice.
It's austere as hell.
Cate Blanchett, lover, a generational talent. She's also one of the physically speaking, one of the brightest skinned people working in the business, not an insult, just physically making that notice. And it's like, bro, the way they color her blue and gray in this movie just makes it colder. She looks downright lizard in this movie.
She looks like she's a mom in this movie too. She looks like she wouldn't say she wouldn't be the mom to say I'm not mad, I'm disappointed in you. She would take it a step further and say I'm not mad, I'm disgusted with you. That's what she looks like. Repulsed. I'm sickened by you. But she always plays this type of character.
Oh, 100%.
But so it's like redundant almost to say that this is a tour de force performance. I said in my review, StevePulaski.com, I said in my review that she's had probably 4 or 5 tour de force performances. And this is another one. And this is another one of hers that's just knocks it out of the park. And she's only made that much more physically imposing by the color palette of this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. And at the core of this movie, at the core of this story, is the story of a character's kind of drunkenness with power, and they're able to maintain that drunkenness very well, right? They're not stumbling about, they're not being sloppy. They're very moderately drunk in that sense, not overboard, but they are drunk with that power. We still have a Zoom sponsored intermission, but we have plenty of minutes to go. And to see where that power takes them, you could easily say that by the time the movie starts, we're already past their time is up if you follow the chain of events, more or less. But still, where this story goes, it is fascinating. I don't want to say roller coaster ride. That's obviously, that means ups and downs. But it is just a bullet train of just sheer, obviously the acting power, the raw acting prowess of Cate Blanchett will forever be stated. In fact, I'm even not going to say that ever again in this review, just because that's a base foundational feature of this movie. But still, how Todd Field manages to keep that momentum going despite a seemingly boring, a seemingly dead world, a seemingly depressing cast of characters, but the tension is still there, the drive is still there, and how they do it with the long, painful in an engaging way, not painful in that I'm bored, but just the painful long shots here. They're like small mini oneers, one takes, not sure. Masturbatory one takes, like a rope or something for Hitchcock or anything like that, or a Children of Men kind of situation. You throw in a movie with a New Yorker article and suddenly the film guy here is dropping films. But in any case,
these references,
yeah, exactly. But even though they're shorter but still one shots, and they are tantalizing to me. Even though there's not a lot of action, no action sequences are happening here. There's one physical fight maybe, but it lasts for a blip. But and everything else, it's just the characters driving everything forward through sheer force of will, force of acting collectively, and a tension a tension, underlying tension that is haunting not only this movie but the character.
Yeah, and like I said, it's really hard to get into this thing without diving into spoilers.
Yeah,
And the line of where the spoilers are is tough
it is.
to
Oh
to,
my
to,
god.
dis, to distinguish. What I will say though is the circumvention of this movie in structure is,
Mm.
to employ a word Dom used on the group chat last night, guffawing. In the way that it comes around that ending. And the thing is, if you just
I
say the ending, like if we were to just describe the plot to you and then tell you how it ends, you'd be like, you'd be lost.
Oh, you say that's
After,
stupid. If I described it, you'd be like, that's
after,
stupid.
but after 2.5 hours of this whole thing and getting to spend like, she's on, Tar is almost in every shot of this thing, Lydia Tar. You spend so much time with her, and that's the final act for her. And the way it like interrupts it and the way it cuts off too at the end, like you're just left with that. And it's one of the most damning endings I've seen in a long time.
100%. It's not even like what,
and I loved it.
What
I loved it.
What objectively happens to the character in their world. It's not even that bad. I mean, it's bad, but like what happens before that. But like they don't. Well, I guess I shouldn't spoil, but like, you know, it's not like they burn alive in a pit of hell for all eternity. No, it's not that bad. But like just the impact of it. When I said guffaw, I was referring to the ending. I'm like, that ending hit me, that as soon as I realized where this ending was going in the last like minute, I visibly, in the theater full of 3 people, that includes me, and the other two were not together. Yeah, exactly. I was like, this was literally me. It's like, oh,
I think I probably made the same noise. I think
like,
probably made the
that.
same noise. Just wild. And the one scene that I think will get replay value is the scene early in the movie when Lydia's teaching a class, because she's also a part-time professor at Juilliard, because of course she is.
This scene is going to be taken out of context by everyone.
By everybody.
Everyone.
Everybody's going to take this out of context, this scene when she puts the spotlight on
all sides of the
young
argument.
man.
Completely.
Yeah, on a young man addressing like cancel culture, because Tar is in a lot of ways too about the impact of one's consequences and how it impacts an artist and how an artist is viewed. Or as one of my favorite Letterboxd reviews of this movie says, it's all about separating the tar from the tartist.
Shut the hell up.
That's one of my favorites. But that's and like the scene because it all starts with this student, this person of color, who says that he doesn't respect Bach or doesn't have any interest in the composer Bach because of misdeeds in his life. What those misdeeds are, I don't know. I barely know anything about.
So real quick, not that I'm an expert, but he fathered a lot of children out of wedlock and was not particularly great to the women in his life. Let's just leave it at that. In addition to that, there's the actual we all agree he totally did that. On top of that, he is the buzzwords come in: white, cisgendered, et cetera, et cetera. So there's 2 angles to it. And dude, I love the scene, but I also hated the implications it was going to have in the wider discourse, I'm sure.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. And that's fair. I was going to say, when you said the first half of your explanation there, I was going to say, oh, so Bach was Nick Cannon's the modern day Bach then, huh? I wish we were still on radio. I wanted to get a note from John after that one. But anyway, but yeah, it does touch on cancel culture in this way. Now, Todd Field plays a really dangerous game here, and he navigates it so beautifully. This is one of the many reasons I love this movie, is that he invites a lot of modernity into a very contained yet epic character study. The pandemic's referenced, the lockdowns are referenced. Cancel culture is a theme that runs through this movie, as well as sort of social media conversations about gender and race and sexuality. They're all sort of mixed into this narrative. And man, that could have really imploded. That really could have set this movie off on a really bad, laughable course. But Todd Field, who wrote and directed this thing, he really incorporates these ideas into a narrative that's all about a person in Lydia Tar who's never been challenged by anyone in life. and has never really been like meaningfully challenged. She's challenged in that Juilliard classroom, but it's not her power is not threatened. She's a conductor at the end of the day. She's a control freak. It controls every aspect of her life. Did you take note at her in her Berlin flat with her wife and daughter that she has all of her stuff segregated to one side of the apartment? Like work is her life and life is her work. And it's fascinating to me the way that Field incorporates a lot of those modern ideas into a story that is, for all intents and purposes, pretty timeless, but extremely timely now.
Yeah, 100%. In the remaining 2 minutes that we have here, I just wanted to jump off of that and say that so much of this movie relies on Blanchett, but there's so much going on around it, seemingly, that you really do not appreciate until it's over, until you realize, oh yeah, this is the world we were in, and this is the world we are now in as a result of that. And it feels like you're coming out of a roller coaster ride again, to try and use that cliche, force it in there. But yeah, dude, a lesser movie would have fixated on the cancel culture thing. But Todd Field here manages to make what is probably a good movie about cancel culture by just showing it, right? Not fixating on the debate, but just showing like what really goes on behind the scenes with power, right? We are on the inside. We see so much of cancel culture, 60 seconds, so much of this cancel culture, blah, 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 all this debate happening on the outside, in the Twitter sphere, in the social media sphere, and we just hypothesize, implicate. But now we're on the other side of that situation. Where does that power, this story at its core about power, how does that play out, and how does that react to people? So in a way, he actually made a fascinating movie about cancel culture, if you will.